Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. At that time, when the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they came together. And one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. "Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law?" And he said to them, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets." The Gospel of the Lord. Lead questions for today. Question number 1. What word, one word, or phrase, one phrase, best captures the sentiments expressed in today's first reading? Exodus chapter 22, verse 21 to 27. One word or one short phrase. Question 2. Our entire religious enterprise can be summed up as a relationship with the divine that bears fruit in love and compassion towards the neighbor. Discuss briefly. Question 3. What is the link, if you can identify any link, between the core demands of the original NSAS peaceful protesters and Jesus' command that we love our neighbor as ourselves? And question 4. What have you done in the last few days? And what more are you going to do in the days ahead to help de-escalate the heightening ethno-religious geopolitical tension in the land? Yes, Solomon.
I'd like to attempt question number 2. Now, before I answer the question, 2 passages, scripture, readily comes to mind. This is the book of 1 John, chapter 4, verse 20 to 21, and Mark, chapter 12, verse 30 to 31. And these 2 passages sums up the greatest commandment, love of God and the love of neighbor. Now, we cannot, as Christians, claim to be Christians just by mouthing it. Our Christianity should show more in action, meaning love in action. And that love will be laced with compassion. So, in our Christian life, more should be seen in the things we do and in what we claim to be. And if we look at the book of Galatians, chapter 5, verse 23, talks about the fruits of the Spirit. And they are love, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. And these,
how many of those fruits are related to compassion?
all of them.
All of them. Almost all of them. Continue.
So, if you're a Christian, those fruits should be made manifest in the daily conduct of your life. So like the Bible also say in Matthew chapter 7, verse 16.
This man knows his scriptures, isn't it?
By their fruit you shall know them. So it's not just mouthing Christianity. It is in the doing, in the acts that you do, which is love in action. So, relating to our neighbor, all the persons come across in our life, be it at home, in our
Why is love, expressing love and compassion, so critical for religious people?
The reason is this: you cannot love without compassion. And Christ has shown that to us. For example, even while he was on the cross of Calvary.
What is it about love that is so central to religion? What I'm saying. Whether I call it compassion or what.
It is for love that Christ died for us as Christians, died for humanity.
Is it only Christians
No,
for
for
whom
humanity, not Christians.
no, is it only Christians for whom love is so central?
No, for
Love and
humanity.
compassion.
Every one of us.
Everyone who believes in God, love and compassion central. Right? Everyone that believes in God, love and compassion is central. Why?
Well, to my understanding, the reason is that everything is built around love. Everything.
Why don't you just answer? Because our God is love. God is love. And he who abides in love abides in God, and God in him.
God is love. If we are God's children, then we should.
Correct. God is love. Therefore, whoever says he's serving God has to live in love. Whoever says they are children of God, they have to live in love. Give him a round. Yes, Ekene.
I want to answer question 1.
Yes.
The word or phrase that best captures the sentiments expressed in today's reading is compassion towards neighbor.
Compassion towards the neighbor. If you read that text, the word that comes to mind is what? Compassion towards the neighbor. Any other word or phrase?
Love and fairness.
Love
And fairness.
No, it's more than fairness. To be fair is to give each person what he deserves now. That's to be fair. But it's more than fairness, isn't it?
Kindness.
Kindness. Kindness, generosity. Kindness and generosity. Give her a round of applause. Yes, Dominic. Oh, yes, answer. Yes, Helen.
Let me answer question number 4. What have I done in the last few days? What I have done is that I've taken a couple of trips in taxis, and I hear the way the drivers talk about the north, what they are doing, and so on. And what I've done is to try to educate them that it's in the north, in the south, everywhere, you have good people and you have bad people. So if few people in any area do something, don't condemn them.
And it is not the north that has ruined this country. It is politicians that have ruined this country. It is not a geographical territory. Right?
Yes.
So when people say the west, the east,
Yes.
the north, what do you mean? Does the geographical north oppress anybody?
No.
Can geography oppress anybody?
No.
Actually, what you call north is actually south for Niger. I hope you know. If you are in Niger, the place we are calling north here is what? South. What you are calling east here, if you are in Ghana, if you are in Cameroon, is what? West. So those things don't mean anything. It is better to identify, to call people, to call leaders or rulers that have ruined our country. Call them and not say north and not say east and not say west.
Yes, Father. And I was at a gathering where there were these big politicians, and I was to make some remarks, and I looked at them with God's guidance. I told them that politics is good, but when you go into politics, is where the idea of common good comes. But you politicians seated here are why people are saying that politics is bad. So I want you to go out and to be the light of the earth, that with the tensions in the country, you can do a lot to help. So you are not there for yourself, but you are there for the poor in your villages. So I would plead with you to go and do something, because people are crying out and it's because of you. And if they cry out to God, God is going to listen to them. And then the other thing that I have done is that I teach, and they are both, people from all parts of Nigeria.
In the last few days, I say in the last few days.
Yes, because I have online lectures with them. And this topic came because immediately after last week, when you talked about the crisis, how they were organized, I was telling them, and the whole class erupted, and so on. So I tried to educate them that you should know better, that what they are fighting against is injustice in the society. They are not fighting anybody, they are fighting injustice in the society. And if we all come together and fight against injustice, we'll have a better Nigeria. So each opportunity I have to talk, I talk about what we can do, beginning with me, what I can do. So that's the little way I have tried to douse the tension.
Okay, thank you. Give her a round of applause. Yes, Mr. Okwo.
On attempt 3,
Yes.
the link between the core demands of the original answers, they command we love one another as ourselves. I think the link between this demand and what Jesus is exhorting us to do today, that the answer protesters saw the absence of love for God in the Nigerian system, the governance and structures that.
So even though Nigerians call God, Nigerians say they are religious, the organizers of the answers didn't see that godliness in a lot of the leaders.
So a complete absence of love for God, because love for God will always flow the love of neighbor, love of country, love of persons, love of enemies, which was almost totally absent in our system today.
So the love of God was seen by the young people to be absent in a society that did not take care of all the little people, the least of Christ's brethren.
Because love actually means a decision to think about others more than you think about yourself. Which our politicians, which our leaders have failed over time. The consequences is, abundant poverty. I like to say that poverty became abundant.
And we became poverty capital
Of the world.
And we could see the poverty capital dimension in the last few days with the unfortunate looting of warehouses and the horrible pictures of people scrambling for, even endangering their lives to scramble for a bag of rice, a carton of Indomie. And my friends in Jos here, we saw pictures of people climbing the roof to go and make way to be able to carry a bag of rice. I thought if you are bringing a bag of rice from upstairs, you come downstairs. We saw in Jos people carrying bag of rice from downstairs and trying to take it home through upstairs. Creative people in the plateau. But this is unfortunate in a country as endowed as Nigeria. Thank you. Give me a round of applause.
I wanted to complete further.
Oh, okay.
And talk about the new politics that looks at the common good of our.
A new politics
that looks at common good. If you call the looters, call them hoodlums, what I saw in Jos means that we are all hoodlums.
So it's not only the looters that are called hoodlums, which is a misnomer, but that those who created the situation are also like.
They are the real hoodlums. They are the hoodlums.
It's a sad story. It's a sad story. Like I kept saying, those of you who watched my interview, I kept saying to call any Nigerian a hoodlum. Sad. Why should our society be so organized or disorganized that some people are growing up on the streets? And then we now turn around and call them hoodlums. Who created them? Who gave birth to them? Who raised them to be hoodlums? Of course, as a friend said yesterday, if you raise a child like an animal, he will behave like an animal. And we are all responsible. by virtue of our neglect. I pray that after this, we shall learn critical lessons. We shall learn critical lessons about the fact that I am because we are. And it is only an account of our being that I can be. I hope that after this we can learn lessons that you cannot create islands of affluence amidst a sea of poverty and be at peace in those islands. In the last few days, high walls did not matter, did they? Barbed wires did not matter, did they? Tinted jeeps did not matter, did they? I hope we'll learn powerful lessons from the unfortunate incident of the last few days. How not to organize a society with this wide gap between the haves and the have-nots. It can't work. It can't sustain. It's a pack of cards that will come crashing down. I hope we all, fathers and mothers, teachers, educators, corporate executives, priests, pastors, I hope we all learn critical lessons about how not to organize our motherland. Thank you. Any more questions? Have we answered question 4? Is it only one person who has anything he plans to do in the next few days? Yeah. What have you done? What do you intend to do?
Thank you, Father. I work in the media, and it's been a tough time for media practitioners because we've had to deal with misinformation, we've had to deal with disinformation, and we've also had to deal with fake news spreading all over. And it's been quite challenging and quite tough. But I have managed it thanks to the Holy Spirit to ensure that the message of peace still spread in the land. And just as you said, the principle of Ubuntu that says I am because we are. And realizing that it's from our collective that each individual thrives. The principle of the common good as well is what I have tried to promote in my programming and on our station generally. And I think that's what will get us through this. Yes, we have a lot of angry people. We have a lot of people who just want to call into a station and just vent and just say anything. But it's in promoting these values of our togetherness, of love, and of peaceful coexistence that we can move forward. And God helping me, that's what I'll keep doing. It's difficult, really tough.
And as Inya does that on her station, I would encourage you guys to call onto stations like that and express your own peaceful opinions, peace-promoting opinions. Because if you leave it to those who want war to be the ones calling, I mean, some of us are too respectable. The same reason why we are not involved, Bishi. The same reason why we have no voters card. The same reason why we don't go to vote is the same reason why we do not call the radio stations and there is phone-in program, and make our opinion known, our opinions about peace, about the fact that we are one. Okay, they say it's a geographical contraption. They say it is an amalgamation mistake. My brother, we have been together for 100 years. Come on. I mean, I traveled out of this country to the United States for only 2 years, and one of my best friends in life is still there. I mean, some of you saw when my friend visited from the US here. One of my best friends. We met for only 2 years. So how can you say you are together for 100 years and instead of recognizing that we have structural problems that need to be dealt with? It is not the person I'm looking at. I mean, I'm looking at God's time. He doesn't look like a devil. It's not from my place. I'm looking at Bishop. I'm looking at Andy. I'm looking at Azubike. They're not from my place, but they look like good people. And we have recognized that there are good people everywhere in this country. I mean, yesterday a video went around about the police DPO in Onitsha, who is a good man from the north. And when the mob went to want to destroy, and he came out, He addressed them and they applauded him. Why? Because he is a good man. So even the mob, sometimes they think they can make a distinction. We need to promote such ideas. We need to promote such ideas. I mean, I was just thinking that when I was preparing this homily, I thought of lining up here people from different tribes in Nigeria and say, which one make we drive here? Which one of these people should we kill? This one, uncle, is from Ogoja. He's from Ogoja. Do we kill him? But he's the one who has been cooking for me for many years. Right? Ekene? You are from where? Imo. Anambra State. She's from Anambra. We don't like Anambra people. Do we kill her? If from which state? Enugu State. We don't like Enugu people. Do we kill her? What about Emmanuel? Oguche is from which state? We don't like Benue people. Do we kill him? Does this thing make sense? Does it make sense? I mean, I'm looking at all of you who represent different parts of this country, and I'm saying, look, Sim is a northerner. Here when I say at the north, you should pursue Sim and kill her, isn't it? Sim is a northerner. What are we doing to ourselves? May the Lord open our eyes. Now, Master, which is the greatest commandment of the law? They went to him. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. You must love your neighbor as yourself. This is the whole law and the prophets. So, just very briefly, to recall your mind to the fact that the Mosaic law had 613 commandments. And so always there used to be a debate as to which is the greatest, because 613, we can't keep them all. Tell us the most important one so that we walk towards keeping that one. Jesus responded by giving them 2 commandments only, not 602 only. Love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. The 2 commandments did not emanate from Jesus, as you know. They were already listed in the book of Deuteronomy and Leviticus. What is new is that Jesus brought them together and made them of equal importance. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5, and Leviticus chapter 19, verse 8. We find herein the summary of the whole law and the prophets. When they say the law and the prophets, they mean the law is the 5 books of Moses. I hope you know. That is Genesis to Deuteronomy. Then the prophets are from the book of Joshua to the end of the Old Testament. It's called the prophets. Do you understand that? When they say the law and the prophets, you mean the entire Old Testament. The law meant Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Then the prophets meant from Joshua through the book of Kings, up to the prophets, up to the Psalms, to the end of the Old Testament. So, some people emphasize the love of God in a way that makes relationship with the neighbor appear as if it is secondary. Like something that is added, optional, extra, that is not really so important. So you find till today, you find some people, as Solomon says, they are on their knees. They are doing all the ritual. They are fasting. They are going for vigil. They are going on pilgrimage. They are paying tithes. But they have no love of their neighbor in their heart. The kind of hateful text and hateful images and pictures and talks that have been going around in the last few days, they too are forwarding it. They cannot make a link between their being on their knees and that neighbor who is from another tribe. They can't make a link. And that neighbor who is from another tribe is also a child of God. I think this is where we miss the point. How come our religion has not sufficiently taught us that everybody created in God's image, everybody that is carrying around the human image is a child of God with the full dignity of a child? Even the criminal, those that our leaders are calling hoodlums, they are children of God. Those that we call area boys and area girls, those we call Almajiri street kids, they are children of God. They have equal dignity in the sight of God. And they are to be protected equally. Their rights are to be promoted. Their dignity is to be protected. Enough of we calling our own brothers and sisters and our own children hoodlums. It's a very bad name. Because it goes back to indict us. Did you see the millions of the people we call hoodlums on the streets? Do you see the hundreds of thousands of young people running around to loot? You call them hoodlums. It means it is the future of our society that we are calling hoodlums. We better do something to give them a sense of belonging so that they don't destroy everything we have built. Such people whose religion is me, myself, and I, everybody to himself, God for all. I always say everybody to himself, God for none. You can't be everybody to himself. So people whose religion does not include other human beings, who show little commitment to justice and upliftment of the poor, it is for such people that Jesus makes today's teaching. You cannot claim to love God while despising or failing to love your neighbor. To say love your neighbor also means recognize the dignity of your neighbor, right? Uplift your neighbor that is falling down. Take your neighbor that is in the gutter away from the gutter. Affirm the dignity of your neighbor. Your neighbor that is weak, strengthen him or her. You be the source of strength for him or her. Also, you cannot claim to love your neighbor working for a better world and society while neglecting to worship or honor God. You cannot have one without the other. If you want to keep only one of the loves, meaning love of God or love of neighbor, you lose both. People who pretend to seek God while they have no relationship with their neighbor will not find the God of Jesus Christ. At least the God of Jesus Christ that I know. Jesus has made that very clearly. As you did it for the least of my brethren, you did it to me. Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 to 46. So I always bring this diagram to show that we have the cross. We Christians have the cross, and the cross actually is a symbol of the vertical and horizontal dimension of love. The vertical dimension of our relationship with God is that we recognize in the 10 Commandments that there is divided into two, right? The first 3 are pointed to God. The remaining 7 are pointed to ourselves, our relationship. I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other God beside me. You shall not call the name of the Lord in vain. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. That is for God, right? Every other one, honor your father and your mother. Keep the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother. Don't commit fornication. Don't steal. Don't covet. Don't tell lies. They are all our relationship with one another. So that's the vertical loving union with God, and that's the horizontal loving solidarity with the neighbor. And loving solidarity with the neighbor includes care, concern, and sensitivity to the needs of everyone, not to the needs of people of my tribe. When you saw people yesterday falling over themselves to go and struggle for a bag of rice, was there distinction in tribe there? Was there a distinction in tribe? Because hunger does not know. So, loving care, concern, sensitivity towards the needs of everyone. It doesn't matter where they come from. And that is why, as you know, when we do our charity work, the work of St. Vincent de Paul, is Jacob here? The work of St. Vincent de Paul, the work of Justice and Peace, the work of Caritas Internationalis, none of this is limited to only Catholics or Christians, right? It is whoever is in need. It is whoever is in need. You remember that Caritas International was expelled from Nigeria because of reaching out to the people in Biafra who are suffering seriously. So, our position is that charity work in the church does not discriminate. It is for everyone that is a child of God. Everyone in need. Truth, fairness, and justice in all our affairs is part of our horizontal relationship. Mercy, forgiveness, and compassion. That is the godliness, the attribute of godliness. Mercy, kindness, mercy, forgiveness, compassion. Generosity, kindness, and patience. These are the things we saw expressed in our first reading from Exodus chapter 22. Then, humility, meekness, service, and selflessness. Service and selflessness. This is what we talked about politics. This is what those who lead us lack. Selflessness. Service. I mean, I like the word that the Yorubas use to define politics. Who is Yoruba here? Tony. How do they define politics? Oshelu. Politicians are the ones that repair, that build and repair society. Oshelu, to make society, isn't it? Literal translation, to make society. Politicians are the selfless people that build society, that make society, that repair society. That's what politics is supposed to be. But see what we have made of it. Purity, chastity, and modesty in our relationships. Peacefulness, mellowness, and the spirit of nonviolence. Mellowness of spirit and nonviolence. I mean, I look at the kind of things coming out of the mouth of some people, and you say, this one says it's a Christian. I look at the kind of text some people are sending around, and I say, this one says it's a Christian. Every Christian needs to try to imitate Jesus. Jesus was clearly a pacifist. He told Peter, who brought out the sword to cut the ears of the one who wanted to deal with Jesus, put your sword back, because he who lives by the sword will die by the sword. Jesus had the power to call the armies of heaven to deal with his enemies, but he says, do not resist evil. He knows what he's talking about. When we saw small evil, or what some people considered small evil, when they saw the threatening protests and they decided to crush it, see where we are now. Violence begets violence. Martin Luther King says, to use violence to crush violence is to add deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. To use violence to conquer violence, I say, is to add deeper darkness to a night that has no stars, to a deep, dark night. So, whatever trouble that the peaceful protesters were causing, they were blocking traffic, right? And people couldn't go to work for 10 days. Okay. So you decide to crush it violently. See where we are. Violence never solves any problem. And those who are calling for more violence now, those who are opportunistic, who want to use the present confusion to cause more violence, the end cannot be good. You know how a war begins. You never know how the war is going to end. That is why all of us must be involved in preaching peace. I am sure that the people who instigated the disruption of the peaceful protesters, if they have any conscience, they must be regretting now. Because they stoked a fire. And now the fire is raging. You see, my people say, this is where I have... you are nodding your head, do you understand? This is where I have put my fire. It is only a madman who says, this is where I have put my fire. The one burning on the hill, I have no hand in it. It's only a madman. A sensible person knows that the fire you ignited here can burn up to... Clap for my people, then get sense. Now, the church then organized what is called spiritual works of mercy and corporal works of mercy, which is part of love of neighbor, isn't it? It is part of love of God or neighbor to have these spiritual works of mercy, to admonish the sinner. You see somebody is living in sin, you have a responsibility to protect that person from going to hell, from destroying his or her life. So you admonish. And we failed to do that for our young people that we are calling hoodlums. We failed to teach them. Instructing the ignorant. We also failed to sufficiently teach those who go to lead us. So those of us who are in positions of religious authority or family authority or educational authority, we failed to raise people. Those who are in politics now, many of them were in school 20, 30 years ago, right? They didn't get the proper orientation. So we failed to teach them, to instruct the ignorant, to counsel the sinner, to admonish the sinner. We failed, and the result is what we are seeing. So none of us should exonerate ourselves as if we have no responsibility. 35 years ago, I was teaching in a teacher training college. And I taught in a teacher training college for 10 years. Some of those people are politicians now. So, can I exonerate myself and say I did my work perfectly if many of them are not leading well? No. Comforting the sorrowful or counseling the doubtful. Many people are living in doubt. What are we doing? Comforting the sorrowful. Many people are living in sorrow. People who are suffering. People who are dejected, depressed, traumatized, living in sorrow. Before this time now, we were discussing suicide. The number of people who are committing suicide, resorting to suicide on account of long-time depression and so on. What are we doing to help them? Mental health in this country is in trouble. We are complaining about medical care, but psychiatric care, psychological care is seriously in trouble because the average Nigerian knows well. The average Nigerian is sick. Can't you see what has been happening in the last few days? Whether it is among the leadership or among the led, can't you see sickness, mental illness? When I saw what appeared to be some executive SUV dropping people with cutlasses and daggers to go and harass peaceful protesters, I am convinced that a lot of people in suit and tie, and the person who led them was in suit and tie in one of the videos, a lot of people in Babangiriga and in suit and tie are not well. They are supposed to be in the asylum, in psychiatric hospital. If the average leader in Nigeria is tested, maybe up to 50% needs psychological attention. Oh, more than 50%. If members of Terra are tested, maybe, what percentage do we give? Those of you who are here, what percentage do we give? See yourself now. Bearing wrongs patiently. This is a Christian virtue, to bear wrongs patiently. Why? Because Jesus Christ says, if they curse you, do not curse back. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who persecute you. Do not resist evil. Because the Lord knows how he will do it. When we decide that we are the ones who will stamp out evil from the world, see what we see. See the consequences. We are not capable of stamping out evil. All we can do is to contribute to good. All we can do is to do more good. But as for removing evil from the world, Jesus came and spent 33 years. He did not completely remove evil. We don't know what the plan of God is. So who are you to think that you can completely remove evil? So you see some evil and then you decide to use force. Rather than do good, rather than contribute to good, you think you can remove evil. That is what some people thought they could do last week. See what we are seeing now. Forgive injuries. We have injured one another. People from, I'm not going to say one tribe has injured another tribe. I will not say that. Why? Because tribe cannot injure another tribe. Can Ishekiri injure Urobo? It's not possible. But an Ishekiri man or woman can injure an Urobo man or woman. So it is human beings that can injure one another. Let's stop saying Igbo and Hausa and Yoruba are north or south. Because these are non-entities that can hurt anyone. It is human beings. Let us identify those human beings. And it is human beings that can forgive. The West cannot forgive. The East cannot forgive. The North cannot forgive. It is human beings that can forgive. Praying for the living and the dead. These are spiritual works of mercy. Then we have corporal works of mercy. feeding the hungry. All of us have the responsibility. Giving drink to the thirsty. It is because we have neglected the hungry and the thirsty. That's why we saw all the pictures, horrible pictures we saw last week, in the last few days, of people scrambling for food and breaking into warehouses. We have not fed the hungry in our midst, clothing the naked, sheltering the homeless, visiting the sick, visiting those in prison, and burying the dead. So, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. All the rest is commentary. To love your neighbor as yourself. We can reach out to love our neighbor only when we first love ourselves. Do you understand that? You cannot love your neighbor unless you know how to love yourself. To love, ourselves is to accept that we are fundamentally good. We have faults. We have weaknesses. We have sins. But there is something good about me. I know that George Ehusani is a jewel inside. Some of you are not able to see the jewel inside me. Sorry. But me, I know. I know I'm a fine guy. I know I'm fine inside, not only outside. In fact, I'm finer inside than outside. But some of you cannot see it. But I know. And because I know that I am good inside, in spite of my weaknesses, in spite of my failures, that I am good inside, it helps me in the way I relate with other people. We know that we are fundamentally beautiful, that every one of us is beautiful. And I hope you know that, as they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If you are beautiful inside, you will see beauty outside. I hope you know that. If you are, nobody here is ugly inside, but if you are ugly inside, what do you see outside? Ugliness. If all you see outside is wickedness and violence and ugliness, then let us check what you have inside is wickedness and ugliness. Because it is age-old wisdom that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Then I know that I am fundamentally lovable. And people love me. From this country to the US to Germany to whatever, people love me. Don't be jealous. People love me. Now, we acknowledge our imperfection, but we know that we are perfectible. We recognize our sinfulness, but we know we are redeemable. I have told you several times here that before I die, when I stand here, you will see halo around me. Andy, you know what halo is? Evidence of what? Thank you. Those who live with self-hate, on the other hand, those who, for whatever reason, are filled with self-loathing cannot possibly love others. Do you know that? Those for whatever, and there are many reasons for which some people have self-loathing and self-hate. Those who have that problem, they cannot possibly love others. So those we call almajiri, those we call area boys and area girls, those we call hoodlums, those we call street urchins, some of them, that is the problem. They will project their negative feelings on others. They will blame and castigate others for what they hate in themselves. We often see other people not as they are, but as we are. One who is not at peace himself spreads the poison of conflict around him or her. Do you understand that? You see that face? It is from what is inside that he will see. What do you think he is seeing? What he is seeing outside is what? Ugliness and wickedness. Do you think he is seeing beauty around him? We cannot bring warmth to others if within ourselves we are cold and empty. We can only love with the amount of love in us. We do love others precisely as we love ourselves. If inside is bitterness, it is with that bitterness we shall see outside. Those who, while growing up, and scientists have been able to prove this, those who, while growing up, never experienced sufficient love and affection, there is a problem. Those who, growing up, were abused or neglected. Those who, growing up, when they grew up they grew up in a dysfunctional family or in dysfunctional families who suffered the trauma of watching their parents fight. Parents are doing boxing in the presence of children. Those who in their tender years are exposed to much violence, including screen violence, meaning TV, social media, they are often unable to love their neighbor. For you cannot give what you do not have. Do you understand that? Loving our neighbors, our neighbor as ourselves, means loving them as if they were members of our family, as if they were our very own. The stranger in need of welcome. These are my neighbors. Who is my neighbor? My neighbor includes what? Can we read together? The stranger in need of welcome and those that are called non-indigent or in our village that are in need of protection. At a time like this, those that are called non-indigent are in need of our protection. I mean, it's a horrible thing in this country. It's a horrible thing in this country that there are people we call non-indigent. I repeat that every one of us, if I go to the United States and I spend minimum of 5 years, I can apply to become a citizen and I will get U.S. passport. And henceforth, I am not just an immigrant, I'm a citizen. Nobody will refer to me as non-indigent after only 5 years. Then you have Bishe, who was born in Lagos and schooled in Lagos, King's College, and did university in Lagos. Then he wants to stand for House of Rep election. You will say he is a non-indigent. What are we doing to ourselves? These are the structural problems we need to deal with. And until we deal with these problems, we are not moving anywhere. What do we mean by non-indigent? We must remove, all of us must cry out, remove that thing about a citizenship certificate from local government chairman. My citizenship certificate should be my birth certificate. My birth certificate, wherever I'm born in this country, should be my citizenship certificate. And of course, my passport. Let's remove that thing. Till today, we still have indigenship and settler. When everybody in Nigeria is a settler, I hope you know. Look, wherever your people are now, go and find out. It's not more than 1,000 years. 2,000 years at the most. They came from elsewhere. We are all settlers. The homeless in need of shelter and those called hoodlums and area boys that are in need of foster parents. Nobody deserves to grow up in the streets. Years ago, when I visited the orphanage and spent some time in an orphanage, I said, nobody deserves to grow up in an orphanage. Every child in an orphanage should be adopted and should be brought up in a proper family. The nanny in our house or the megadi in our neighbor's house in need of support is my neighbor. I keep saying to you that your megad or the megad of your neighbor is your nearest neighbor. Their children are your nearest neighbors. What is your relationship with them? The sick, the handicapped, and the aged in need of care and affirmation, they are our neighbors. The orphan in need of adoption or foster care. The childless couple in need of loving support. In a place like Nigeria, a childless couple in need of support. The poor family in need of basic upkeep. The unemployed graduate in need of livelihood. A lot of people were able to be on the streets for nearly 2 weeks because there are a number of unemployed graduates. If they were working in the bank or working in some corporate organization, they couldn't have been free for 2 weeks to be on the streets. That's the other dimension that leaders don't look at. The unmarried woman in need of affirmation in a society that says if you are not married, you are nobody. It's my neighbor. The single parent in need of critical assistance is my neighbor. Where there is no love, what do you have to do? Sow love, and you will reap love. Where there is no friendship, be a friend, and you will find friendship. Yes, authentic religion is loving God and showing it in our love for others. How true is our love for God? What is the implication of this? The depth and the profundity of our love only begins to show as we interact with our neighbor, especially the neighbor from a different tribe or religion. So loving, caring, and sharing, teaching the ignorant. Part of teaching the ignorant by word and by example, supporting and mentoring the young people around us who have not had opportunity of good education. A lot of the people we call street urchins, those we call hoodlums, those we call area boys have not had opportunity of good education, right? We have a responsibility towards them. Supporting the sick, the handicapped, defending human rights and dignity, fighting for justice and equity, promoting dialogue, mutual understanding, and peaceful coexistence. How are you demonstrating your love in the conduct of politics and governance? For all of us who are in politics or desire to go into politics, how are we making our politics accountable, our leadership accountable, and leadership of integrity? In the practice of business and career, when people say Nigerian factor, they are not considering themselves. How are you taking the Christian message of integrity into your career, into your business? In your family life, how are you defending Christian marriage and family values? How are you witnessing to sacrificial love in your family and among your children? Then, before the neighbor in need, as I have explained, as Jesus says, as you did it to the least of my brethren, you did it to me. Now, in the last few days, we have seen these sad pictures. It's like a harvest, isn't it? Bazaar. Yeah. Mike, is this Calabar? I think Calabar has one of the most gory pictures of these things. Yeah. I mean, Shifu, this is your town. I didn't know that you people were so many. It's like the whole town surrounded that building. Can you see? Social distancing? How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sun? Yes, and how many times must the cannonball fly before they are forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind, blowing in the wind. It's blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Can we rise and end with prayer for Nigeria in distress? Prayer for Nigeria in distress. All-powerful and merciful Father, you are the God of justice, love, and peace. You rule over all the nations of earth. Power and might are in your hands, and no one can withstand you. We present our country, Nigeria, before you. We praise and thank you, for you are the source of all we have and are. We are sorry for all the sins we have committed and for the good deeds we have failed to do. In your loving forgiveness, keep us safe from the punishment we deserve. Lord, we are weighed down not only by uncertainties, but also by moral, economic, and political problems. Listen to the cries of your people who confidently turn to you. God of infinite goodness, our strength in adversity, our health in weakness, our comfort in sorrow, be merciful to us, your people. Spare this nation, Nigeria, from chaos, anarchy, and doom, and bless us with your kingdom of justice, love, and peace. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.